Nobody had ever asked me to define my soul before. That's what it felt like. It was a precious moment. And here's what I read: I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I am tranquil, authentic, and pure inspirer. I light fires. That's what I want to do for 10% of the boomers. And that feels a lot like heaven on earth.
Welcome to Vulnerability Muscle, the inspiring podcast challenging norms and helping you redefine vulnerability as a strength. I'm your host, Reggie D. Each episode of Vulnerability Muscle dives into a variety of topics such as mental health, social issues, and mindset shifts. We explore the power of vulnerability and fostering meaningful connections, healing, building resilience, and promoting personal growth. Sometimes these conversations are uncomfortable, but good workouts often are. So join us and flex that vulnerability muscle. Welcome to Vulnerability Muscle. I'm excited. I'm your host, Reggie D. I am also excited. I am excited to have today with me Sharon Rolph. How are you, Sharon?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I want to read a little bit of your bio because it's so impressive. But credentialed bio for most of her life, Sharon felt invisible. And when retired, she wondered how she'd know if she was productive. Today, she's a motivating influencer at 77 young years of age as an author, podcast guest, and queen of courage on Instagram. Her days now feel right since finding her spark. And a big part of her mission is helping other people find their spark. And I was so impressed when Sharon told me that she intends to impact 10% of the baby boomers by inspiring them to repurpose their free time, invisible assets, and potential so that by using their spark and unleashing their dreams, they strengthen our communities and heal the world. Oh, those are your words. How does that make you feel to hear?
It seems like a big task. So I've employed some people to help me with that, a team. But
Yes.
I feel like people are starting to wake up to the fact that we can help heal the world. Are you
Yes.
feeling that, Reggie?
I think so. And I think I'm glad like your audience is the baby boomers and helping them because we need the wisdom, we need the life experiences, we need all of what boomers have lived through and know, and the energy and the youthfulness and the excitement, because I am excited, of the youth. And I think when we come together and bring it together for a shared purpose of healing the world, of making the world a better place for people, and for our world in our natural world, like that is where true growth and connection happens. And so, yeah, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, somebody recently, just in the last week, used the word harmony, and I thought, wow, what a
Mhm.
beautiful word! That
Ooh, that's
when
good.
we can live in harmony, I one of the things that's inspired me over the last few years is I love the scripture in the Lord's Prayer: "Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in
Mm.
heaven." And I've collected a lot of stories of people who have experienced heaven and came back. And in fact, on my wall, you can't quite see it here, but I have uh, messages that are pretty common, what people bring back. And so I decided that I would imagine standing in heaven like they experience all the beauty and the color and the music and the fragrances. I hear flowers
Mm.
sing to you.
Wow. Wow.
And I said, okay, I want to feel that in every cell of my body. And then how would it change life here?
Ooh.
And for it to feel like heaven on earth, it's possible. You and I
It's
can
possible.
help bring that about.
And
Let's
we
do it.
will. Yeah, let's do it. I'm glad that you have had some help along the way because I think that is something that we all need and desire is help. And we have to be vulnerable to ask for help. And so, but I want to jump into a segment called "What Comes to Mind." So there's
Okay.
three simple questions. Feel free to answer them however you want, or pass, or flip it to me, or whatever you want to do. But The first, what comes to mind when you hear the word vulnerability?
I think of magic.
Mm,
I think that when I am vulnerable enough to reveal my authenticity and honesty and live to tell about it, that it invites you to also reciprocate. And I'm a certified knowledge manager, and the main crux I got out of that training was when I put on the table what I know and you put on the table what you know, the opportunity for new knowledge to emerge happens.
mhm.
Synergy, you know? So
Yeah.
so if I am vulnerable first, it helps you to be courageous to be vulnerable also.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love that. And I think that is one of the things that I've found with vulnerability, the strength in helping us connect in that way, but then also innovate and create. Like you
Yes, yes.
said, there is an idea here, there's an idea here. When we come together, that idea explodes into something bigger and better, and things that we didn't even know we could cook up, we do when we come
Right,
together and
right.
open up in that way. Oh, that's good. I love it. Next question. What do you do to center yourself when you're feeling stressed or maybe even depressed?
That doesn't happen very often, Reggie. I did when I took a cruise the end of September, and it was a test. It wasn't all that delightful, but um, a couple days later, I I felt sad for about a half a day, and um, it seemed like the cruise was a test, and I did not let it upset me. I just whatever happens is okay. Um, but and so if it's a test, then okay, next. But it seems like last week I had a whole day of being sad, and I didn't understand it. I'm reminding myself I've kind of gotten away from playing music here in my condo,
Mm,
hardly at all, and I don't watch very much TV at all. So I was being outside would be probably taking a walk because I love taking little biscuits with me on my walk and feeding them to dogs because dogs make me laugh.
yeah.
I get my kisses from dogs, Reggie. I
I
know the
love
dog
it.
names more than the parents' names, you know?
Yeah, that's the truth. I walk my dog around the neighborhood, and Rosie is a celebrity and nobody knows who Reggie is, and it's like she gets all the attention, and it's so beautiful because, like, people give her treats and just oh, she loves it. She is a people person for real, so, like,
Yeah.
she's yeah.
So so I whistle at crows and squirrels and yeah, the whole being out in beauty. I kind of watch what's blooming or what's going to seed or so um, beauty is a big deal in my life. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Nature is so beautiful too. Alright, last one. What is a favorite childhood memory of yours?
Yeah, the adventure I had that I thought fondly of was as a probably 12, 14-year old. I would whenever an aunt would come to the farm with my cousins, I would scheme up this idea of going back to Seattle with one aunt and then a week or two later coming back to the farm with another aunt. And one time I asked my dad, well, let somebody else go and I'll just ask for them. And he said, no, since you asked, then you get to go. So I felt brave and adventurous going to Seattle, and I think one time we actually even went all the way down on the bus to Redding, California, to um, just went there and back again. All, but I wanted to show you this one block in this about vulnerability. Is Brene Brown says when the willingness to show up and be seen without any guarantee of the outcome
Mhm.
is her definition. So I'm showing up and being willing to be seen,
Yes.
and I just leave it up to let's see what happens. That's where the magic happens.
Ah, I love that, and I love the fact that the willingness to be seen, but in your bio, you describe feeling invisible for a period of time. Can you talk about what led to that? What time period was that in your life? And what did the invisibility feel like to you?
Well, I'm still kind of chewing on that somewhat, but it started very young. Um, as kids, our our inclination is for our human experience is to be safe as you can be. And just as I was leaving, I moved from Seattle to Tampa, Florida, and then moved myself to Dallas, Texas. And just before leaving Seattle, I was in a lady's home she was helping people deal with there's serious problems in life. And I was one of the last ones she talked to, and she gave me a question about what was my earliest memory.
Mm.
And I told her, well, actually, I don't know if this actually happened or not, but
Mhm.
I have a sense 2 or 3 times that I was laying in my crib as stiff as a board, um, and that my dad was right there, and that he had leaned around the doorpost and called my mom that I was scared and that I needed help. And this lady confirmed that that actually happened.
Mm.
And later, when I was 4 or 5 years old, and other times in my early teens, I had to have a secret with dad and masturbate him. And it was confusing. It kind of felt ugly and dirty. And why, why do I have to do this?
Mhm.
And so I decided that if I double down, get focused, don't rock the boat, be get good grades, and don't cause any problems, that and be obedient, that was the other one, that I might be safe.
Mm.
And that pretty much did help me a lot. I said hundreds of times, thank heavens he keeps his hands off me.
Mm.
So, but on the other hand, I had such a sense of uh, I paid attention to things. So when my brother and sister had flashcards, 3 plus 2 equals 5, my mom would have me drill them. And I thought, why just sit here, you know, listening? Why don't I pay attention? So I actually skipped second grade.
Okay.
I was always glad I wasn't in that grade behind me. So um, I I was a lifelong learner at a very young age,
And a
and
high
that
achiever, it sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was always glad I wasn't, because my maturity level was just that added a lot to being able to skip second grade. But
Mhm.
yeah, I felt invisible my whole career. It was kind of deep down in my gut, was where I felt it. I did do Toastmasters and Dale Carnegie course,
Okay.
where I took initiative to learn how to speak and be heard, I guess. Because Dale Carnegie, they had to have you drill it. It needs to fit within 2 or 3 minutes. And that's what I did. That's what they wanted. But other people, they'd go on for 5 minutes, and wait a minute, where's so
Can I back up, Sharon? So you mentioned, you were saying your dad, you experienced him masturbating. Is that what I heard? Is that correct? And it was a period of you were young and you're developing. Luckily, he didn't force himself on you or touch you in any way. But having to experience that was one of those moments of feeling invisible. Is that correct?
well, yeah, because um, how do you talk to your parents about what are you doing, whatever. It turned out it was kept a secret from me for like 15 years. So I was probably pretty close to 30 when I found out that my older sister had a baby by my dad.
Okay.
And yet I saw a lot of that kind of um, behavior going on around me, and not getting the same attention, the same treatment. I remember leaving the dinner table one night as a 15, 16-year old, and they had been calling me names and kind of ridiculing me. I was called the blue elephant because, you're always on in blue jeans on the farm.
Mm.
And I thought, I don't even want to eat if I have to put up with this.
Mm.
And, teenagers love to eat.
Yeah.
And so I decided to leave, and he called me back and explained to me logically that both my grandfathers had been nearly 6 foot tall, and that I come by my height and size legitimately through genes, the DNA. And I'm just trying to get you used to it so they out there won't hurt you.
Mm.
Bad
Yeah.
logic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I continued eating dinner because logic kind of won out, I guess. But I never wanted my dad to walk me down the aisle. I never did much dating. I didn't find guys all that interesting because, I like to. Well, my brother, there was a period where he would call me about every 6 weeks, and we'd talk about solving the problems of the world. I like deep conversations,
Yeah.
and not very many people, are that interested in good conversations.
True.
So,
True.
even now, I'm still kind of realizing that in my business, um, I don't know how to be seen per se to pay attention to what I'm saying because that's good stuff.
It is good stuff, and I see you, Sharon, and I am glad that you are here. I'm glad that you're able to share your story with so much courage and so much bravery because those are things that people take to their graves, and I think that that is a part of some of the internal turmoil that traps us and harms us and spreads its toxins throughout. And for you to be able to get that out and reclaim your story, I think is such a powerful testament and a great model to so many other people who've had maybe similar experiences as you. So thank you.
Yeah, Reggie, Thanksgiving, Black Friday it was. I was on a podcast with a lady from India,
Mhm.
and she wanted to talk about feeling invisible. She said we need to get this out and be talking about it. We went on for like hour and a half,
Wow.
and I felt like I was contributing to helping heal the world. Yeah.
You are. You absolutely are. And I mean, I think it took me up until maybe mid-20s, 28 maybe, before I was able to verbalize, um, sexual trauma in my own life. And it's something that I can talk about now, and I've gotten very open and vulnerable about talking about different things, but not understanding the impacts of what it did to my 4-year-old and maybe even younger brain, and how that development turned into the behavior that I had in relationships with other people, and like it comes out in different ways for different people. But I didn't know. I felt bad. It was shame attached to those things. And if I had heard this conversation at a younger age, I would have had a little bit more liberation and a little bit less shame around my experience. And so I just appreciate you for being so open because it is healing the world. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I, in fact, just within that hour, I was talking with someone about how I've never had a healthy sense of pride.
Mm. Tell me what
And
your pride
yeah,
has looked like.
well, the closest I come to is I've always liked wearing good colors, So even my little art blocks, it has to level up to a certain amount of good color,
Mm.
and um, so I even when I retired, I was like 245 pounds. So I had to cover up my extra weight, with um, how I appeared, and colors helped me with that. And I always had dark hair, and I always felt pretty proud of my hair and my smile. Yeah, I could share my smile quite easily, but um, I guess I've considered since just in the last 3 months, 4 months maybe, about perhaps being willing to be seen in a pageant.
Mm.
And that takes a certain amount of pride, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure I'm willing to ready to stand up to that, but it definitely would be a healing thing because I found a couple pictures on Facebook about how some ladies had been all dolled up to be in the pageant, and I was kind of shocked. It kind of scared me a little bit because they looked plastic.
Mhm.
How many layers of makeup, and is that fake hair or real hair, and how much lipstick, and all this. And I just love vulnerability and authenticity and being my own true self.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I'm ready for it this year, but maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future, and if you do, I wanna know about it, so you gotta email me, let me know, because 'cause that'll be something I would love to support. Oh, that's so cool. I wanna get back to kinda your career and the trajectory of going from invisible to the queen of courage, and so you're a behavioral scientist, um, and you've done a lot. You've been a coach, and then you also founded Effortless Vitality. Can you talk through that journey of your passions from a work standpoint?
Well, I started coaching class the week before I retired. So one Friday I was in coaching class, the next Friday I was leaving work. And the first thing they taught us in coaching class was to define our essence statement. Well, I've gone on to rename essence statement to a your spark or your intrinsic spark because essence has gotten a lot of popularity and what does it mean to people. But
Mm,
um, they we had to go to class with this document some assignment, and our assignment was kind of like this. We talked about what do we love to do, what are our personal qualities, like having nice hair was kind of probably one of the things I put down, and being responsible, that was what I liked about myself. And then what is our hot button and what are our aspirations and our values? And then we wrap that up into, well, along with guiding principles, into a metaphor. And I think of a metaphor kind of like a parable where you're telling a story that can be um, interpreted several different ways depending on where you are in life. So
mhm,
at the end of the class, at that weekend we stood in a circle and we read to each other what our essence statement was. And as it was coming around the circle, I noticed people were kind of sniffling, like, what's going on? And when it came my turn, nobody had ever asked me to define my soul before.
wow,
It's what it felt like. It was a precious moment. And here's what I read: I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I am tranquil, authentic, and pure inspirer. I light fires. That's what I want to do for 10% of the boomers.
wow.
And that feels a lot like heaven on earth.
Mm, wow.
That you're living from what is inside your invisible assets, your spirit, your talents, your the things you love to do. People can't see that. I can't see what Reggie's good at, but he knows what he's good at because it's inside.
Mhm.
A- At Boeing, we had this term original equipment manufacturer. God put in me original equipment inside of us that he wants us to be happy and you have the joy of sharing it with others. And you and I are doing that today.
Yes. Oh, wow. Where did that spark happen for you? Was it in that class? Was it in that course? Where did you go from uh feeling the invisibility to knowing that you had this magic inside of you that you needed to share and help the world with?
Well, it kind of I've probably invested 10 to 20,000 in courses that I've taken. And even though I knew that I wanted to share with people about their essence, I did not have the courage to go that far. I could talk about purpose with you because potential as a teenager, I like what what's my potential? What's your potential? And potential is kind of one of those things you need to have a return on your investment. And yet it also has to bloom someplace. Somebody has to draw it out of you, kind of, or you see your own light. But yeah, I during coaching class, one of the things that was in our phrase that was in our manual was this phrase, effortless vitality. And I that kind of jumped out at me. And I like that term a lot because that to me is kind of like the energy that comes when you're in the flow, or the energy of a river rolling down the hill, and it just, you don't have to force it, it's
Mhm.
going to show up. And so the stimulating and energizing your everybody's potential and energy is just something that is would be so rewarding to me. And I think this world is so hungry for that
Yeah.
now to help heal the world. Yeah.
Yeah. You said something interesting that I wanna, come back to, because being invisible is and not being seen, and I think part of that is actually not being seen, and then another part of that is not sensing when we are seen. And you said that you needed help, or sometimes people need help to see their own light. And was that something that was illuminated for you? Was there people in your life that showed you this light, or was it you finding it yourself?
Well, the one thing that happened, that kind of brings that to mind is before I left here for Tampa, just that Sunday before, I had lunch after church with my uncle, and I dared to share with him our family secret.
Mm,
And he actually told me, that he had seen some weirdness going on, and why, just like, why would my dad ridicule me when he's trying to help me not be hurt?
yeah.
Well, stuff like that. And outside the restaurant, he gave me a big hug. And I said, "This is the real kind, right?"
Mm,
He died that week. But to have that before he died
yes.
was real significant to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had a trucking business that drove down to California every week, twice a week, I think. And there was a windstorm, and his truck landed in the ditch, and he died.
Oh man.
So, but it was through a couple more of the classes that I got the courage to go all the way to want to help people live from their inner spark, that life can be joyful. And even um, you and I are expanding our business. And one of the first things that um, Jackson had asked of me was, what would it feel like to reach 10% of the boomers? Oh, what would I think? No, it was more like, what would it cost me? And the thing that came to mind was a lot
Yeah.
of love. It would cost
Mm,
me to love my world in a huge way, and along the way, loving myself.
true.
The whole. I host a group of every Wednesday. This morning, I had a group online in a loneliness to resilience community. And in fact, our topic was three critical points about feeling unheard, and how people act out when they're not heard, or how people lose their self-esteem or resilience when they're not heard. And I I know I went several times through life, especially in my early 20s and 30s. Well, if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me,
Mm,
because I didn't love myself that much. I Yeah. So um where where the world is talking about mental health and mental strength, and um that, like, the trauma. In fact, I have a book I got from the library about feelings that are unprocessed from trauma never die
yeah,
in your body.
right.
And we've talked about that on our loneliness group, because we've had a couple guests that had become alcoholics or severely addicted, and that trauma from their parents. Our parents were broken, and that was the first step. In fact, is stopping to judge
Yeah.
ourselves. I started being a lot better at losing weight when I started telling Sharon she's doing the best she knows how.
Oof. Yes. Yes. Meeting yourself and accepting yourself.
And then saying, your parents were doing the best they knew how. Everybody
Yep.
is kind of doing the best they know how.
Yep. With the
So it makes it,
resources and the knowledge that they have, it's that's what we're doing. Like I think many people think that there are some people who intentionally create ill will to other people, but for the most part, people are living and behaving the best way they know how with the resources and knowledge that they have, and sometimes that's harmful to other people. But giving them grace through that and understanding that we're human and we're learning and evolving allows for that healing to take place and to not take those things as personal and then get to finding that same amount of grace for ourselves, which is where the healing expedites.
yeah, very much so. Yeah. So I'm every month or two, it seems like I'm going deeper into, well, in fact, was it last Friday, I think, as I was going to sleep, I felt a real warm spot just
Mhm.
below my wishbone, and it felt like God loving me right there.
Mm,
And I said, well, I want to love me like God loves me, because when people have been in uh, near death experiences, they often talk about how you can practically cut the love in the air. It was so thick. And can you teach me how to love me that way?
wow. Yes, yes. You have inspired me, and I think that like the mission that you're on, I mean, you are doing it and you're accomplishing it and you're impacting much more than baby boomers. But I want to come back to that question that you thought it was, but what would it feel like? What does the world look like, and what do you feel internally when you impact 10% of the baby boomers and see the impact of that on the world?
Oh, it's going to be tons of people smiling, tons of people doing kindness, tons of people helping each other out. The whole the harmony that would be in the world and in the air of, we're just taking care of each other. Life is gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's refreshing and fulfilling and satisfying and contentment. Yeah, all of that.
I love it. I love it. I can see it, and you're exuding it as you speak, and so I think like you're getting inklings of it along the way, and I can see that happening right now for you. I want to get back to some vulnerability and seeing how that has impacted your life. Can you speak to a time where your vulnerability was perceived as a good thing or a bad thing in relationship and how that impacted your relationships, whether personal or professional?
I don't think I can. I've always kind of left vulnerability as put it out there, see what happens, and oh well if they don't respond.
Mhm.
Um, and we have talked a fair amount in our loneliness group about um, vulnerability. In fact, one of my friends, I knew him when I was in high school, and he started coming to the loneliness group. And so he was kind of complaining to me one day about, oh, you go to church and say, hi, how are you? I'm fine. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Fine. And you really don't know anything more than you did
True.
before. And so I challenged him with, if you told your truth, because he was struggling. His wife had died about 3 years before this. I knew his wife, and in fact, I dated her sister, with her double dated with her sister, and so he actually, I guess the next day or so, was in a men's prayer group, and he asked for prayer.
Mm.
That was a start of being authentic, being genuine with for himself. And then it seemed like another day or two went by, and his pastor suggested he talk to a counselor or coach. And he's made some changes since then, in fact. And it's no longer, hi, how are you? But you tell, he was sad. He was
Mhm.
kind of on the verge of depression, maybe even, because um, he has a couple sons, but they're in other states, and I found that for a lot of people, when they've lost a spouse, it takes about 3 years for that process to, be ready for to moving on.
Mm.
And so, are you telling your truth is a good way to be vulnerable? Um, we often think, "What will people think?"
Yeah.
They're not thinking. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, they're not thinking about you as much as you think they are. That is absolutely true. Do you think there's a space for vulnerability in corporate spaces and corporate settings?
Well, you mentioned it at the beginning that there's a lot of innovation that comes with vulnerability, and corporations are getting more and more pressure to have innovation. And I have a friend here. In fact, he's also had a near-death experience. I haven't met him yet, but online, and he teaches CEOs about belonging, and the whole looking for, if you model the vulnerability, the humility, the caring about each other, caring that your employees are heard, you're going to have a better crew. You're going to have more profit and less errors. And that whole belonging is like a family feeling. You've got each other's back. What a beautiful thing. I mean, talk about harmony.
Mhm.
And it is happening in pockets around corporations.
Yeah.
In fact, I read here about 3 years ago. I'm not sure where my note is on that, but they were talking about creativity and vision and values at a corporate level. Well, a big part of your purpose is, in fact, your values.
Mhm.
My value is creativity and collaboration and love and being responsible. And I will practically die to defend that. So um, don't challenge me on that, because I will fight for it.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised when people don't put love as part of their values, because isn't that what life's about?
Yeah.
But apparently they don't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people have to rediscover that because that's what all of this is about is love at the end of the day. And it's so much love that we it's starting with ourselves, showing love to ourselves, and then how that becomes a mirror for the love that we're able to show everyone else. And and so yeah, I think that is a huge one. You said one of your values is responsibility. Describe that, or what does that mean to you?
Okay. Okay. How I describe it is, I want you to be able to take my words to the bank.
Mm.
bank on if I make a commitment, I want you to count on it.
Yeah.
One of the guys on my team at Boeing, he'd wait to answer that question. You know, if I asked him something, he would want to figure out what I wanted to hear before he answered a question. He was like a used car salesman. Okay, yeah, bad. And he had all kinds of health problems because of his irresponsibility.
Uh-huh.
It was like, why wait? There's no authenticity to him at
I
all.
got you. Yeah.
And he lost his job.
So I can take your word to the bank. I like that. I like that a lot. I want to hear about the Queen of Courage. How did when was she born, and what has she taught you?
Well, let's see. I named one of my podcasts "Fresh Courage in Retirement." In fact, that's actually the name of my book.
Mm,
But "Fresh Courage" is your time to shine in retirement. You know, but let's see. I had been asked. Well, courage kind of comes along with vulnerability, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
And let's see. I was at a Forbes Riley perfect pitch class, and she was asking people as she was getting to know them, what were they known for, and I had done a class about, and I was supposed to make a list of courage to be, courage to have, and courage to do. And I mean, there was like 30 lines on that page to fill out. Um, gosh, I'm kind of not remembering exactly where that showed, but curiosity and courage goes along with purpose and possibilities,
Mhm.
potential. Um, but I had somebody found me online in Brazil, and he wanted he was hosting a class for people that were learning English. And the people in the class were around 45-ish. And he didn't care what we talked about. They just wanted to hear English being spoken, you know? And so at first, my first presentation was I was focused on retirement. So I said, since you have parents that are coming behind you, this message is kind of more for them on how you can help them get ready for retirement. But they liked my presentation, asked me to come back again. So the second time I talked about this courage to be, do, and have. In fact, I started holding up my little art blocks, and I was putting them in, words of wisdom in these art blocks and sewing them. And so after I did my second speech with them, just them learning English, the courage uh, talk was the most successful one they'd ever had. They liked me talking to them, you know. So that's kind of nothing consequential about that. But so when I went to Forbes Riley class, I said, "Well, I people know me for my that's right. I remember now. When I was doing podcasts, I started asking. I decided I wanted to have somebody on my podcast that was could talk to us about courage. And I must have asked 8 or 10 people, who do you know that could talk on my show about courage? I was shocked at how many times I had to ask people, don't you know somebody that's courageous and can talk about it? Well, when we finally found somebody, he was I had lunch with him before Thanksgiving. He's like 92 now, I guess.
Mm.
He had been a minister. He had a PhD in theology, and he had been um, a soccer coach for referee for like 20, 30 years. And he had actually been a guide on a railroad route in through Montana, and he had done tons of things. Fascinating guy. And he's always so kind and gentle. I hear him paying people compliments all the time, even while we were at lunch, you know. And so he came on my show, and I decided there was a problem if we didn't have people that, does Reggie know somebody that's courageous? So that's where it started was with Robert Nicholson and him being you know, facing the tough choices that life presents us and living through them with courage and resilience.
Mm.
And yeah, it was uh, Queen of Courage. Oh, in fact, just in the last 6 months, I've had to um, pressure myself to, after all, Sharon, you're the Queen of Courage. Do not be fearful. Oh, that's another thing. When I moved down to Tampa, Florida, my friends here had said, well, before you get homesick and turn around and come back, give yourself 6 months. That's where it really started.
Wow.
Because in Florida, I after 3 months, I thought I got this. This is no problem. By the fourth month, I was hitting the
You're
wall.
feeling it. Mhm.
This is serious.
Mm.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about going home because I'm not a failure,
Mm.
but I for some reason I got out my concordance, my Bible concordance, and I somehow the word courage came to me. Maybe that will help me, get through this tough time. And I found 8 or 10 verses in Joshua's chapters 1 and 2. Do not be afraid. Be courageous. Be of good courage. Do not be afraid. Well, recently I said, well, okay, how many versions of "Do not be afraid" in? Oh, about 337. And that's when I started stomping my foot, Reggie, and saying I refuse to live my life based on fear.
Oh, thank you for that. That is powerful. And I
Well,
I love the courage that you've had to be where you are today.
and I was imagining a stop sign about 4 inches from my nose to get myself to stop worrying, stop fearing, but to choose faith and courage.
Mm. Wow. That is huge. I want so you said a lot of great things that I want to tap into. One, it's so much. I want to ask about what does failure mean if you were to be a failure? And what would that mean about you if you were to fail, if you had come back after 4 months, or if you reached 9% of the boomers, or what does that look like? And how do you feel if that were to be the reality of things?
Actually, that's not on my radar. Um, because I've said many times, both on my Instagram, Queen of Courage, and on my loneliness group, I'm the one that stops me.
Mm.
And there's not a bone in my body well, I get a little tired once in a while. But Jackson has been encouraging me. How's your effortless vitality, Sharon? Oh, what? But to allow myself to find my joy and happiness and harmony in my life, and to back off and let other people help me is kind of a tough lesson when you've been your sole supporter. I put myself through college. I got a master's program degree and all that. I'm responsible and I'm diligent. Um, and besides, there's nothing else tugging at my, come on, Sharon, let's go do this. Well, I would like to go to Holland and New Zealand and Greece, maybe.
Yeah. Some beautiful places. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like that. I mean, you're focused on achieving and getting the thing done. And when you set your mind to something and you've written it down and you've followed your courage and your faith, you will absolutely accomplish anything it is that you set your mind to. So, you're inspiring, and I think that there is a lot of wisdom that you possess that could help me. And again, like I think it's extending way beyond boomers because of your life's experience. And I'm just curious if there is a professional, a young person. I'm 33 years old. What advice would you give me as I continue my life, my career? As I navigate, whether it be more courage, more vulnerability, more love, what advice would you give? Maybe 2 or 3 nuggets.
Well, I think you've probably heard the term let your feet follow your heart. And I know a time or two I didn't do that. I didn't have the courage. I lived off of my credit cards for 6, 8 months. And boy, that was a deep hole to dig out of.
Mhm,
But I often in the past have used this line by Thomas Wolfe. If one has a talent and fails to use it, one has failed.
mhm,
If one has a talent and partially uses it, one has partially failed. If one has a talent and finds somehow to use the whole of it, they have gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction few people ever know.
mm, beautiful. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you for that. I think I can carry a lot of this with me for years and years. I'm curious, before it's all said and done, what is one of the bucket list things that you wanna do?
Well, New Zealand for some reason is on my list. And Holland, I love tulips because of
I
the
can see that,
simplicity of
yeah.
the beauty. Yeah, yeah. I've got a picture here. Um, I would like to go. Well, in fact, I was looking at a Rhodes Scholar travel thing a couple nights ago, and because I'm a lifelong learner, Rhodes Scholar is definitely a way to go. But I would love to travel with some people that I can, you know, fall in love with, and have a lifelong relationship with people that I admire. And I've been doing a lot of connecting with people on LinkedIn. I've met some amazing people. In fact, even this morning, a lady that sounded a lot like Jackson as to what she was doing for people in the world,
Mm,
and waking up to the people that are ready to make an impact on the world, not just putting money in the bank.
mhm.
Money in the bank is stuck there. It's not flowing. It's not being used.
It's
Um,
currency for a
so
reason, right?
yeah, so there's I definitely would like to have a sufficient. Oh, one of my bucket list is having $50 and $100 bills in my wallet that I can give to people at the grocery store,
Wow. Yes, that's true service.
or putting uh, young ladies through college
Mm,
is a scholarship is another. Yeah.
that's amazing. Are there, any family members still in your life? Do you still like, your biological family, are they around?
My mom and dad have passed on. My older brother and sister have passed on, and I have two younger sisters. One has been really struggling with for decades with rheumatoid arthritis, um, and then my youngest sister. When mom was expecting me, she thought she would have twins, so we were going to be Karen and Sharon. Well, Karen's my best bud.
Yeah.
She's 9 years younger than me, though. So yeah,
Okay.
um, she's still working. So I don't know. I'll give her another 2, 3 years before she retires.
Nice, nice. I'm sure I have a lot of fun planned for that time. I wanna wrap up with a segment, just fill in the blank. And so I'll ask a couple of things and then you fill in the blank, okay?
Okay.
All right. Vulnerability has taught me blank.
Um, guts,
Mhm.
guts, courage. In fact, I found another quote here. Curiosity is is an act of courage and vulnerability. Curiosity is an act of vulnerability and courage.
Mm.
So curiosity keeps us young.
Mhm. Yes. All right, fill in the blank here. My greatest source of strength is blank.
My faith, I think,
Mm.
and my biggest uh, scripture that I really rely on is nothing is impossible.
Mm. Yes. Yes, that's so true. If I could offer one piece of advice to someone feeling invisible, it would be blank.
Well, treasure yourself, I guess, or loving yourself. I remember sitting in a meeting with, there's about 15 of us, I guess that was, had an appearance with the top guy in our business. And I wanted so bad to ask him. We were all asking him questions, but I thought, doesn't he have any questions for us?
Mhm.
And I wanted to challenge him on that. And I never had the courage to do that. And so finding your voice is very, very important. In the session I led this morning, one of the critical points about feeling unheard is helping yourself articulate clearly what you feel and think, because until you can get clear on expressing yourself, you're not doing yourself any favors. So work on yourself is opportunity for growth, and I love personal growth. So get sharp on articulating it, and then having the courage to speak it,
Yeah.
because like I did with that senior guy. I don't know if he's a president exactly, but he was a regional president, I guess. And um, that vulnerability to dare, that there's innovation that comes from vulnerability and courage. And you may, sometimes it's just helping to connect the dots, because they need help and they need to hear your voice, and they may not know it. But a lot of people that are egocentric will never say, "What do you think?"
Mm, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Oof. You just opened up another one. Last one. I need help with blank.
Well, yeah, the earlier before you, I was with another guy, and he was asking me about having a healthy sense of pride, and I'm going to need help with that. Um,
Mhm.
I can't even. Well, I've considered being in a pageant for senior Miss America kind of thing, and that reeks of pride, and that's not like me at all. So that is going to be a uncomfortable stretch if I go that route. But if it works out as being a good strategy, and being authentic and genuine, and I take my spark with me, we'll do okay.
Yes, yes. Well, I think whether you join the pageant or not, you are a tremendous human being. You matter just as you are. I see you. I see your greatness. I see your light, and I see you shining that on this world. And I appreciate you for that. I wonder if there's anything on your mind, any last thoughts, final thoughts that you want to leave the audience members.
Well, let's reach for kindness and harmony. That is going to be a huge stretch for most of us, and to to fulfill that prayer of heaven on earth. Let's go for that. That's my biggest curiosity and possibility. I'm going to stretch for.
Yes, yes. Well, if people want to reach you, Sharon, how can they do that?
Well, I do have a website, SharonRolph.com, but effortlessvitality.org will get you to the same website. My book, Fresh Courage in Retirement: Finding Purpose, Essence, and Fulfillment, is on Amazon, and it's a do it yourself process, because I ask you lots of questions to help you remember where did you leave your dreams and your joy and what you love to do. Um, and I do have 6 uh, offerings on the Great Discovery platform. My book is there, and my Discover Your Spark is there. And you're going to want to sign up for that, because it's going to help you move closer and closer to what shines in you. What's the intrinsic motivation that flows effortlessly from your heart.
Wow, that is so beautiful, and I'm gonna link that in the show notes. But Sharon, with all the things you could be doing and all the places you could be, I appreciate you being here with me, embracing vulnerability.
Thank you so much. You're doing a good job too, Reggie.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of Vulnerability Muscle. If you've enjoyed these conversations around vulnerability, please consider leaving a review. Your feedback not only motivates us to continue to do the work that we do, but it allows other people to witness the power of vulnerability. Share your thoughts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you're listening from. And don't forget to spread the word. You can follow us at Vulnerability Muscle on Instagram and me personally at Reggie D Ford across all platforms. Visit vulnerabilitymuscle.com for additional resources and support. And remember, embracing vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is the source of your greatest strength. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but most workouts are. So keep flexing that vulnerability muscle.